Director Tim Dang, thank you for joining me here at Cultural Attaché.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
So you're making your return to East West Players with a production of Spring Awakening. What made that the right project for you to go back?
Well, I don't know if it was the right project for me to return. It has been 7 years since I have been artistic director of East West Players. But for a lot of the people who may or may not know that the current artistic director, Snehal Desai, was appointed the new artistic director of Center Theater Group. And so he was slated to actually direct this play, Spring Awakening, at East West Players. But because of the amount of work that was called for with Center Theater Group and, of course, other theaters across the country, that he had to bow out of directing this. And so he had contacted me to find out if I was interested and available in taking on this project. And I know that Spring Awakening has won the Tony Award twice for its original production, as well as the revival by Deaf West Theater on Broadway. And so it was a very intriguing idea in terms of how East West Players could bring something different to Spring Awakening, post-pandemic, and with all the things that are happening in America that actually parallels the play Spring Awakening, which takes place in 1890s Germany.
Right. So was it those themes? Was it the resonance of those themes that was the
Absolutely.
biggest attraction for you?
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. So when you talk about oppression and the power structures back in 1890s Germany, whether it was religion, the education system, the treatment of women, and then you draw parallels today, where you still have oppression of religion. You have the overturning of Roe versus Wade. You have the banning of books. You have discrimination against the LGBT community. All of these themes are also very relevant today. And I think that if we are able, as a company, to open up dialogue and to really have robust dialogue about some of these themes, I think that we will have succeeded in what I think that the creators of Spring Awakening originally intended, with giving the youth rebellion that opportunity to change the world.
So is your production going to be set in Florida?
Well,
cheap shot to Florida, I know, but nonetheless,
right.
All the things you described are problems in Florida, not exclusively Florida, but
Right.
that is the poster child for where these issues are most at the forefront.
Absolutely, and so thanks for saying that. So that's why I felt, with East West Players being primarily in Asian American theater, we are actually going through this concept of being very race specific in our casting, as opposed to just being colorblind or being multicultural or diverse. We thought that was very important to bring to this production, that would make it unique. Much like Hamilton, which tells the story of America's past with America's present. We are doing quite the same thing in terms of, we are telling this history of 1890s Germany with 2023 America and what America looks like, hence the diversity in our cast. But then we take it one step further in terms of having it, very more race specific in terms of the characters. But I do believe that even though a lot of these issues initiated in Florida, you do feel that reverberation across all of America, and even in in California, where there are so many different issues that we face. So many. I don't know where to begin.
We don't have enough time for that.
Right. Exactly.
But given the increases in violence and hatred against Asians as a result of the COVID virus and the way it was presented by some of the leaders in this country, does that add an extra resonance to this particular piece, even if it's not specifically discussed in the play? Is it inescapable when you're dealing with youth, dealing with the issues they have to confront?
Yes, absolutely. In some of our roundtable discussions with the cast, and when we talk about the youth, I believe that all members of our cast are members of Gen Z. They have gone through this period of isolation. They were attending college during COVID, and so they knew attending classes by Zoom, and that colleges were supposed to be the best years of their lives in terms of social interactivity, and they did not have that. So when you talk about those themes of isolation and mental health, a lot of our cast members were very honest and forthcoming in terms of how traumatized they were during COVID, and not just because of fear of catching the virus or anything like that, but just in terms of their own mental health, in terms of being able to socialize and to network and to be with other people during this time where they thought that they could be free, right? When you go to college, you move away from your parents and you're on your own and you're independent and you get a part-time job. And all of this was exacerbated by that. And once you put into this, the discrimination, whether it's race discrimination or LGBT discrimination, that just adds another layer of that intersectionality that a lot of our Gen Z youth are facing, and it's really difficult. I think it's really difficult, and I really feel for them because I'm a boomer. And we didn't necessarily have these kinds of issues when we were growing up. I think teachers and parents would just say, just suck it up. This is life. And you got to just deal with it right then and there. And I think that our Gen Z, they react and respond in a very different way that really calls upon them to really tread lightly in terms of all these various issues that face them. Climate change, gun control. I mean, going to school and having to have active shooter drills. That we didn't have that, or I didn't have that when I was going to college, and this is a reality for them now.
No, we had duck and cover.
That's right. That's right.
We were worried about we thought that getting under our desk would protect us in a nuclear explosion.
Right. I remember my parents. Now, this is going back even further because I'm originally from Hawaii. I remember from parents having to learn how to use a gas mask to put it on just in case something like that happened. And so so you're talking about the the 40s and 50s now. But I guess every generation has something different, and so Gen Z really has a lot of obstacles to face.
But haven't we all?
Yes, absolutely.
So as a director, you come in with a perspective as to how you want to portray this particular work. How much does your cast and their own experiences, since they are playing characters that are not radically different from their own age, how much does that perspective get altered through the course of rehearsals leading up to your first previews?
Very interesting enough, as we talk more and more about intersectionality, that in our company of 16 performers, 9 of them, including our lead, is of mixed heritage. So if you're familiar with the play Spring Awakening, Melchior, who we follow his journey, through adolescence and coming of age, is actually half Japanese and half white. And so having cultural backgrounds in 2 worlds makes this character's intersectionality a little bit more different than, say, other stories of other productions of Spring Awakening. And 9 other performers in the play are also of mixed heritage. In today's theatrical world and even film and TV world, there are no stories being told about those particular individuals that are of mixed race. And I have stated that, according to the U.S. Census, by 2042, that America is going to be majority people of color. And since 2012, the birth rate has been more than, in terms of 50%, or children of color, or babies of color. And so since 2012, so we're already 13 years into that now, so that the youth are already majority people of color. So that's why I thought it was important to bring this particular story of intersectionality, of where there are so many kids now that are of mixed heritage. So what does that mean, where some of them don't fit, like Melchior, or the actual actor who plays Melchior, where he doesn't look Japanese enough or Asian enough to fit into, auditioning for Asian roles, or he doesn't look white enough because he has Asian features. And so that's a new intersectionality that I think that this production deals with, because we were able to actually cast 9 company members that are of mixed race, including those people who are half Latino and half another culture, or half Black and half another culture. So so the idea of this mixed heritage, I think weighs very big in terms of our production of Spring Awakening. And I think as a artistic director of East West Players, that this, not new, but this particular subject matter or theme, I thought was very important to bring to light to the public.
I saw the original production of Spring Awakening at the Atlantic Theater Company.
Oh my gosh! Okay,
I did not see it on Broadway,
mm-hmm.
And I was not a big fan of the way actually it was directed. And
Mm-hmm.
I later talked to one of the cast members, whom, for privacy's sake, I will not mention.
Mm-hmm.
But I was told that the way Michael Mayer wanted to direct it was as if it was 2 pieces. That there were the dialogue scenes, and then it would be a concert. It would be a rock concert interspersed amongst the dialogue scenes.
Right, and they brought out microphones.
They brought out microphones that they
yes.
carried around with them or had handed to them at particular moments.
Right.
And I thought that didn't serve the material well. That's just my opinion, that it felt like it was 2 pieces as opposed to 1.
Mm-hmm.
Then I saw Michael Arden's production with Deaf West, and I thought it was so fully integrated that I had a greater appreciation for the material. Where do you see this? Is it 2 pieces? Is it 1 piece? And if it's 1 piece, how do you make it 1 piece when it was originally presented, as sort of 2 that share the same space?
Right. So we're not pulling out microphones and singing as if it was a rock concert. The way that we're thinking of it is that we have the feeling of oppression in the regular scenes of dialogue. It's the feeling of oppression. When the songs happen, they are songs of liberation because they are inner monologues. It's happening in their minds, and so they are free to express in any way. And that's why the contemporary sounding or rock concert feel was kind of like created for that. So that what we wanted to do was to explore that idea of their free expression in their minds, in terms of how free that they could be, in terms of their fantasies, in terms of what they want to do to their parents, because they're so angry at their parents for not getting the kind of information that they needed to grow up. Like, what about the birds and the bees? Where do babies come from? They were withheld all of that information. And so that angst and fury comes out in their imagination. Something that Stephen Sater said is that when the music happens, the music does not forward the play, which is absolutely correct. It does not forward the plot of the play at all. It is more like I want, I need kind of songs, but it stops the play. But at least you get to feel how these characters exist, in their minds, and then how oppressed they are when the actual adults or the power authorities take effect upon them. So that's what we're showing in terms of that modulation, or the difference of the two worlds is done in a way in which they have to live within the confines of authority during the dialogue, and when the music happens, this is a vicarious experience of how they are liberated and are rebellious.
But it still functions the same way as a lot of songs do in musicals. I mean, music, people in musicals traditionally break into songs when their emotions become, so big that they can't
Right.
express it just in words.
Right.
The anger is a perfectly viable emotion that prompts all the singing in this show, doesn't it? Or frustration, anger, disappointment, confusion. All of those
Yes.
are emotions that sort of serve the traditional way of why a character breaks into song.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, sure. Passion, all the different things that they are feeling. I mean, I'm hoping that just in terms of fantasy, the way that the youth are able to fantasize and imagine a world that where they can be liberated, I think is very important to show in terms of those particular sequences. And I hope that we are able to blend that through movement, choreography, through what we call behavioral gestures that we are able to implement during this. Yeah, I saw the Deaf West production as well, and thought it was so well done and so well integrated, and we hope that we can match that, because yeah, I get exactly where you're coming from.
Now, there's one song in the show that I think sort of allows that angst and that frustration to quiet down, but it's also, I think one of the most honest songs between two characters, and that's "The Word of Your Body." How important is that song for you in this musical?
Oh my gosh. I think it is very important. We are using also an intimacy director to help guide us through the three segments of the, because it happens three times, or reprises two times, to really get to the heart of the matter of that song. And I am actually really thankful that with the help of an intimacy director, that we are able to slow down the process and really take it apart beat by beat in terms of what do these phrases mean? How does that relate to, say, like, any kind of physical? That's why I mentioned behavioral gestures, so that we can use behavioral gestures to represent, I guess, the various metaphorical meanings that could happen in that particular thinking of a teenager when doing that kind of exploration. I mean, yeah, I personally, as a director, as opposed to indicating this is what we want to have, it's actually a collaboration with the actors as well as with me and the intimacy coordinator in terms of projecting, what it is that we want to have happen in that particular songs. The whole idea of being a wound and being bruised, and this is something that young people don't know, that all these different events, whether it's love, death, all that, they're wounds and scars and bruises that we take on through life that make us the individual person that we are when we turn 40, then 50, then 60. And we carry all of that with us. Some people might call it, we're stigmatized or traumatized by it, but that's what makes us, a full human being. But again, as a teenager, you don't necessarily know that, and you take these events, one at a time. I mean, there's, of course, one character that commits suicide because it's just too much for that character to bear. But yes, we are wounded and scarred and bruised all the time, and we wear that. And I think that's really important. And you caught that as well. And it's so beautifully sung or written or composed, but it is very, I think, traumatizing as well.
You have played characters that were not Asian in musicals. I think rather famously, from the research I did, you played Richie in A Chorus Line, who is probably the least Asian character in that show.
Right.
And no changes. You performed the part as was
right.
written.
And we have to say that this was in 1987. I'm trying to think. 1987.
Right. So this is not
Thanks
long.
for aging me, Craig.
We all have a history, Tim.
Yes.
But A Chorus Line was still running when you did that. That was still on, I believe that was still on Broadway when you did that. And we hear a lot about what the opportunities are like for people who get to play characters that were originally written as white. What's the experience from the actor's point of view of being on stage and being able to bring their own stamp to characters that were originally written as white?
So first of all, I think that's very important that you that you bring that up. And again, I have taught at USC and at AMDA, and it is very important for an actor to be able to bring 100% of themselves to a role. So whether it is a performer of color, or whether it is a person who is from the LGBT community, that it is very important that when they embody a character, that they bring 100% of themselves to that character, so they don't leave a part of themselves at home, and so they're only doing a certain percentage of that. So first of all, I think times have changed. Diversity back in 1987 is different from diversity now in 2023. And now we are more sensitive to a lot of, the themes around us, when it concerns racism or LGBTIQ issues, sexism, racism, patriarchy, and all that. So it's really different. And I think sometimes it's very painful to hear and observe. But I think that if we acknowledge our history first, and we find a way to create dialogue that I think that we can, with this dialogue, we can create, I guess, maybe a more inclusive future, which is where I think theater is heading. Now, I don't know if I'm actually answering your question. And in fact, why don't you ask me the question again in terms of
What's the
play a
experience
character
like?
that has been.
Yeah, what's the experience like for a person of color to play a character that wasn't originally written as a person of color?
Right. So that's why it's really important to bring that 100% of self to that, find the commonality of that, and then with my own personal history. So say, I'm Asian American, I'm from Hawaii, I'm fourth generation. To bring all of that with me, and that way it makes the character a lot more complex and different, and not necessarily something where you are just bringing the same qualities of that original character that was not, you know. As I recall, back in 1987, we kept all the dialogue the same. And so because we were an Asian American theater company, um, you know, there was a little bit of confusion as the audience was seeing a chorus line and said, okay, there's all these Asian people, and there's Richie, there's Diana Morales, there's all these, but we kept it exactly the same. But after 5 or 10 minutes, we just became those classic iconic characters of a chorus line. And I think that was the goal. That was the goal at that time. I think now in 2023 is, okay, how do you bring additional intersectionality? So say, like, this character of the lead character of Melchior is now being played by someone who is of mixed heritage. So how do you bring that to that? And we've discussed so many different issues because of that. Melchior finds a love interest. There are girls who have a crush on Melchior, and yet at the same time, the actor playing Melchior was saying, well, but sometimes Asians are not considered a romantic lead. Sometimes, Asians are not considered attractive, or there are other stereotypes of Asians. And so why would these girls have a crush on me? Or what? And so that's the interesting thing for someone who is playing that character that is of Asian descent, now has to tackle, as opposed to just accepting that the girls have a crush on Melchior because he's good looking. But now we're talking about, okay, because he's smart, because he's intellectual, because he's educated, that's what makes him now attractive, and it's not his looks that the girls are attracted to him.
So given where we've gone, as in terms of the performing arts, and the ability that you have to put on Spring Awakening, with East-West players, is there a future for Canton Jazz Club to come back?
I would really love to do that and actually rework it. So, Canton Jazz Club was 1991, and so that's 30 years ago. And so certainly the times have changed, but in the 40s they did have this all Oriental, again, the terminology, they had this all Oriental nightclub in the 1940s, and in San Francisco, called Forbidden City, and we actually created a nightclub in LA around the same time. But yeah, I would really love to bring the 1940s floor show and a murder mystery to that. But yeah, I would really love to rework it now, knowing what I know now, and how some of the themes about Asians are now, that I would love to really look at it. I think that there are a lot of great Asian American roles coming to movie. I mean, the Academy Awards, right? The last Academy Awards. So I think that the idea of more Asian and Asian American shows and movies and all that coming up, I think is really good. Again, in terms of showing that broad perspective of Asian, and so it doesn't become a stereotype anymore when we have to fight for that one Asian project that comes,
So let me
to
conclude our time
Broadway.
together, Tim, by asking you one more question.
Okay.
At what point will these conversations about identity become passé? When will we move? When do you think in your or my lifetime we will get to a point where these conversations don't have to happen anymore?
No. For good or for bad, I don't think it's going to go away. I mean, I think identity just keeps on changing over and over and over again. I mean, there's just so much to unpack in it. You know, America really is this diverse place. I mean, you can talk about other countries, and other countries are probably more homogenized, and America is really a diverse place. And I think it is the conversation, or it is the dialogue, that is really important, and that we actually keep on talking about it, because the more that we talk about it, and the more aware we are, I think the more we are accepting of our differences as well, that we can live together in a society where people accept and respect what everyone else is thinking.
As you're saying this, I'm thinking that's what a production like this of Spring Awakening can do. You can take an 1891 work, a 2006 musical, you can present it in 2023, with the cast that you have.
Right.
At some point, we are going to realize that there is a commonality, aren't we?
Right.
I mean, the angst and the issues that are brought up in this particular work are not exclusive to any one group of people. These are
That's right.
universal. That's why it works, isn't it?
Yes, that's absolutely correct. I mean, again, we have so many different cultures in our company that, during our table work, that we were talking about that, in terms of, there are all these differences among us, but yet, there is something that brings us together, and there are these themes and commonality. And it is the same thing about growing up, and it's the same thing how parents are able to navigate telling us what we should know and what we shouldn't know at a certain age. And the thing about this is that it is all about information. Arm your children with information so that they can grow up and be able to adjust and navigate themselves. I think one of the things that we learned, and thank goodness we have a dramaturg who is a professor of theater history, and he was able to share this, that a lot of times you are a child, and you are called a child, and you're referred to as a child, and then you're a man or a woman. There's no in between. What happens during adolescence? And no one has really figured it out in 1890s, and I don't think there are any books or research that figures out what do you do, between the ages of 13 and 17, and it's all different. And you, as parents, I guess you learn and you navigate on your own, on a case by case basis,
Just as the kids themselves do.
That's right. Exactly. And that's the commonality, no matter what race or what country you're from.
Absolutely. I really appreciate your taking the time to talk about Spring Awakening with me, Tim.
Of course. Thank you so much for inviting me here. And if you have the opportunity, come see the show.